Okay, so today we're going to be going over trig identities, but with the double angles. So first we need to know that cosine 2 of alpha can be turned into 2 cosine squared alpha minus 1, 1 minus 2 sine squared alpha, cosine squared alpha minus sine squared alpha, and for sine 2 alpha, it can also be 2 sine alpha cosine alpha. So we're going to use those in doing the problems. So for number 1, we will start off with changing 1 plus cosine 2 of x. So we'll keep the 1 and we'll turn cosine 2 of x. I'm going to turn it into 2 cosine squared x minus 1. And this 1, positive 1, and this negative 1 will cancel, so I'm just going to cross them off. Over cosine x is going to stay the same, but sine 2x will become 2 sine x cosine x. So next, we're going to bring down the 2 cosine squared x over and distribute this to this, so 2 sine x cosine squared x. So these 2's can cancel, cosine squared x can cancel, so we're left with 1 over sine, which can also be cosecant. The answer to that one is cosecant. Next, we are going to change cosine 2x into, I'm going to do 2 cosine squared x minus 1 again. And this is also minus 1, so I'm just going to change that to minus 2, because that would be minus 1, that equals minus 2. Sine x will stay the same, multiply that by 2 sine x cosine x. So next, I'm going to factor out a 2 from this cosine squared x and the minus 2. So we'll have 2 cosine squared x minus 1 over, I'm going to distribute this to this, so 2 sine squared, then sine x times 2 sine x will be 2 sine squared, and then cosine will be on the end. So we can cross out the 2's, and cosine squared x minus 1 can also be a negative sine squared x because of the rule of cosine squared plus sine squared equals 1. To get, you can subtract a 1 to this side and the sine squared to that side. So then you're left with cosine squared minus 1 equals negative sine squared. I'm just abbreviating to make it easier. So now we have sine squared over x. And then sine squared x cosine x from here. The sine squares can cancel, so you're left with negative 1 over cosine, which is also negative secant. So the answer is negative secant. So on to 2a, cosecant squared can also be 1 over sine squared x. Multiply that by 2, I'm just going to leave that alone. Tangent is also sine over cosine. Multiply that by sine 2 of x can also be 2 sine cosine. So I'm going to combine this. So I'm going to leave the 1 sine over sine squared x. Leave the 2 alone. So this is also like over 1. So it's going to be sine x times 2 sine x cosine. So we're going to be left with 2 sine squared x cosine x over cosine. So these cosines can cross out. So we're left with 1 over sine squared x, 2 minus 2 sine squared x. So now we're going to factor out this 2. So we have 1 over sine squared again, but now we're going to have 2, 1 minus sine squared x. So 1 minus sine squared x can also be cosine because of this again up here. So if you subtract the sine squared from the side, you'll get 1 minus sine squared, and then that'll equal cosine. So I'm going to replace this with cosine. So bring the 1 over sine squared x again, 2, and then we're going to have a cosine. I'm just going to get rid of this parentheses because it's just going to be 2 cosine squared. Sorry, cosine squared. And then I'm going to multiply this together. So this is also over 1. So it'd be 2 cosine squared x over sine squared x. So cosine squared x over sine squared x can also be cotangent because cosine over sine is cotangent, and then we have a 2 up here, so it'll be 2 cotangent but squared because these are both squared. So 2 cotangent squared. So next one, we're going to do cosine of 2x. I'm going to change that the same as I usually do, 2 cosine squared x minus 1. You can change it to any of the 3 ways that cosine 2x can be changed, but I just usually do that one. Sine 2x can be 2 sine x cosine minus 1 over sine x, because cosecant is also 1 over sine x, over 2 cosine. So I'm going to try and get rid of this 1 over sine, I'm going to multiply just this part by sine over sine x over sine x, because that is the same thing as 1. So this will cancel, and then we will just be left with a 1, because those cancel, and then 2 cosine x times sine x will become 2 sine x cosine x. And then this will, I'm just going to bring this down, so 2 cosine squared x minus 1 over 2 sine x cosine x. And luckily we got it easy, so 2 sine x cosine, 2 sine x cosine, so we can combine that really easily. So 2 cosine squared x minus 2, because we're combining the top, and then this will just be the common denominator. So again, we're going to factor out 2 cosine squared x minus 1 over 2 sine x cosine x. And the cosine squared minus 1 can also be the negative sine squared, like before. But it'll also be 2 here, and then 2 sine x cosine x on the bottom. These 2's are going to cancel. There's 2 signs on top and 1 sign on the bottom, so we can cross that 2 out. So we're going to be left with negative sine x over cosine x. It's really small, but sine over cosine is also tangent, so we're going to get negative tangent. So there's 4 more problems, and for these I'm just going to show the answers. So I will show you a copy of all of the problems, and then I'll show the answers. So here's all the problems. Ignore this. This is the cheat sheet for earlier. And so here are the answers. Feel free to pause whenever you need to. Go back up. And that is it.